Russian oligarch.
The death of Boris Berezovsky. He was one of Russia's richest men who went on to become one of the most vocal critics of the president, Vladimir Putin.
Imagine a top Kremlin journalist, someone who once received a medal from Putin for praising Russia's annexation of Crimea, now publicly warning that fuel shortages could cause the regime to collapse. That is not protest speech on the margins. It is a crack from within the state media apparatus in the image of total control. And right now, that crack is widening. For weeks now, reports out of Russia suggest that fuel shortages are no longer localized or temporary. They are becoming systemic, and even state media is quietly acknowledging it. In occupied Crimea, for instance, around 50% of gas stations have run dry, according to Russian-aligned media monitoring nearly 17,000 filling stations. While the overall percentage of stations experiencing interruptions increased by roughly 2.6% in recent months across all regions, approximately 14% of stations in Russia's southern federal districts have ceased distributing fuel. More than 10 locations, including Moscow, Nizhny Novgorod, and central Russia, have reported long lineups for gas, with some drivers having to wait up to 40 minutes. With no apparent explanation for where the fuel went, Moscow's state media are now reporting that some stations have been out for a day, some for a week. These aren't random rumors. Reuters reports that the fuel crisis has spread to over 10 Russian regions, triggered in large part by Ukrainian drone attacks on refineries and export terminals that have disrupted supply lines. This crisis hasn't arisen in a vacuum. Since August 2025, Ukrainian drone strikes have targeted refineries deep inside Russia. At least 16 of Russia's 38 refineries have been hit, including repeatedly in Krasnodar, Afipsky, Bashkortostan, Volgograd, and Novokuybishevsk. Analysts estimate that these attacks have shaved off around 17% of Russian refining capacity, roughly 1.1 million barrels per day. Some refineries remain offline or damaged. The Ryazan plant, for example, previously a major refining facility, has reportedly been struck.
Let's start with the fact that today is the 1,333rd day of the war, that is, of the special military operation. Just a little is left, just 115 days before we surpass the duration of the Great Patriotic War.
Can you answer my question?
I will answer it, yes.
No, don't answer me. You're engaged in your traditional demagogy, while you know perfectly well that we are not conducting the SMO by military methods. In principle, everything could have been solved within 2 hours.
It was impossible for us to solve it within 2 hours. In principle, you are one of those people who in early February 2022...
Me? I never shout. Hello? No gasoline, right? It's been about 3 weeks, I think. So who bought up all the gasoline without us? No idea. Somebody drank it, maybe. Has it been gone for long? About 3 weeks. Have I really not driven this way for that long? Looks like it.
Further down the road, it's the same thing. No gasoline there either.
Sometimes people get angry, sometimes not. People get used to everything.
Hello, this is TV. Do you have gasoline?
No, no gasoline. None at all. Well, we do have some, but only for organizations.
You mean for medical services?
Yes.
How long has there been none?
About 2 weeks.
No gasoline. How do you manage?
We're supplied separately.
He's increasing the taxes on Russian citizens after promising them he's not going to do it. Here's the report.
On to the Russian economy now, which is experiencing a growing budget deficit. As part of a new 3-year budget plan, the Russian Finance Ministry has proposed a rise in VAT from 20% to 22%. The deputy head of Russia's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, called the 2026 budget a wartime one. Earlier, the head of the Russian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs, Alexander Shokin, said that the most unpleasant tax innovation for business and for the population, end consumers, is a possible increase in VAT. Retail prices will rise, again there'll be inflation, rate hikes again, and so on, Shokin explained on the 21st of September. Kommersant reports interruptions at the petrol pumps. In the Russian regions, the number of petrol stations selling petrol is going down. The number of petrol stations selling petrol in the face of interruptions to fuel supplies in Russia has decreased by 2.6%.
In response, Russia has imposed a partial diesel export ban for resellers and extended its gasoline export ban through year-end, measures intended to conserve domestic fuel supplies. Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak announced the bans, excluding producers in the diesel case and intergovernmental agreements for gasoline. Still, many experts believe these moves will offer only limited relief. Diesel exports were already declining, and the bulk of diesel volume is shipped via pipelines by producers, not resellers. The effect so far, wholesale gasoline prices in Russia have spiked 40 to 50% year to date. In Crimea, the reported price of AI-92 gasoline reached 79,788 rubles per ton, a new record. The economic implications are stark. Cutting refinery output undercuts one of Moscow's key revenue streams. The oil and gas sector contributes roughly 1/4 to 1/3 of Russia's federal budget. With fewer refined products to sell abroad, Russia's capacity to generate war revenue is under more constraint. According to some dealers, fuel shipments may be at their lowest point since 2020. Oil prices, however, have reacted favorably. This week alone saw rises of over 4% for global benchmarks like Brent and WTI, which are among the biggest weekly increases since June. Russia is under strain on several fronts in the context of sanctions, supply interruptions, and growing pressure. Perhaps the most noticeable aspect, though, is that this problem is no longer being discussed in whispers. Instead, it is being discussed with startling candor in Kremlin-controlled media and occasionally even as internal warnings. One prominent example, a pro-Kremlin editor, formerly lauded by Putin himself, has warned that unresolved fuel shortages could lead to the fall of the regime. That the warning comes not from a dissident, but from someone deeply embedded in the state apparatus strains the line between propaganda and crisis reporting. While I could not independently corroborate every detail of that individual's identity, the broader pattern aligns with signals from multiple sources. Staff in state media are increasingly acknowledging infrastructure failures, rationing, and logistical constraints. For example, Russia has passed legislation banning citizens from filming or disseminating video evidence of damage from drone strikes, or face escalating fines. That legal crackdown is consistent with a regime that wants to appear stable while hiding the cracks. Uncertainties remain: how sustainable the bans will be, how effectively supply lines can be rerouted, and whether Russian authorities can blunt the political impact of widespread shortages. But one thing is clear: fuel is no longer a technocratic issue. It is political. The war effort is being funded in part by energy revenues, and when those falter, so does the cushion shielding the system. The open warnings from within state media show that even propagandists now recognize the pressure. Putin and his inner circle may have believed fuel to be a reliably controllable commodity, but Ukraine's drone campaign is challenging that assumption. In a conflict defined by shadows and subterfuge, this may be one of the clearest cracks yet.